everyone. We're going to work with a very limited palette today, and we're going to explore art inspired by Gustav Klimt. Now, I have this beautiful book here called The Magical Tree, and it was also inspired by Gustav Klimt, and it's just a really beautiful, whimsical book inspired by that particular piece of artwork. So it was, I'm not sure if I'll get the pronunciation right, but Miriam Uyased and Anya Claus were the ones that produced this book. And at the very end of it, they also give some factual information on who Gustav Klimt was and what was Vienna, because he was Austrian, what was Vienna like during Gustav Klimt's time. And it's an interesting read, and it shows a way of being inspired by someone's artwork in a point of time in history. But I wanted to give you a quote from Gustav Klimt before we went any further, and that is his quote, which says, "To every age its art, to every art its freedom." How is that? Now, this piece of artwork is being inspired by his Tree of Life, which is full of swirls. So it's up to you how you want to create it and how many swirls you would like to include. And what I'm doing here is just giving you a bit of an idea with a chalk pencil, and I mean, it's something that I can use to follow too. And the reason why I'm working with chalk is, number one, it shows up beautifully on the black, and it will just wash away with paint, so I don't have to worry about it being, sorry, it will wash away with water. I don't have to worry about it being permanent. Alright, so that's going to give us a good basis. And then what I'm going to use is actually a Matisse paint, a metallic gold, and it's reasonably thick. You can see it coming out there, quite thick. And what I'm going to add to it is an airbrush medium. So what that's going to do is make it a little bit more fluid, so it's going to help it flow. And I'm wanting to work with a flat brush, so I'm just going to mix this in. And what we can do when you start with a metallic paint like this is that, you know, your brush strokes may not be perfect, and you may find that there's points where the paint has actually run out in the brush and you get that drag effect. But it can all be fixed up with a black marker and with a gold pen. So we don't have to worry about, you know, if our lines are not perfect. What we want to do is have a little bit of fun and enjoy exploring some of the design ideas by Gustav. So I'm just going to start with using my flat brush. Now my paint is quite fluid, and I can do multiple layers to remove the brush strokes from here. I'm going to make sure that my brush is loaded up, and now I'm going to follow the design that I had drawn out. Now, if you are uncomfortable using a flat brush, what you can do is use the flat brush for these main sort of branches, which are going to be that little bit thicker. And then you can swap to a narrower round brush. So I'll demonstrate that as well. So here I'm working with a flat brush. It's been in the, I think it's a 1/4 inch. I've left it in my water bowl so the markings are coming off. So here we go. Let's bring that part of the tree over there. Alright, so now we've got a trunk dividing off into the branches. So I'll wash my brush here. I've got a selection of brushes. That's another wide one. I'm actually thinking that I might go, oh, I probably should show you using a round brush, and I don't have one. Do I have one here? I don't use them a great deal. Right. What's this one? This is a number 4 round brush. So I'm loading it up really, really well. I'm making sure that it's completely full of paint. And now I'm going to follow my branches and then let my brush do the work. So on this side I haven't even counted them, but we'll check. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 branches, and on this side I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and yet they're all slightly different. Okay, so what I can do now is let that dry and then come back to it and go over, give it a light spritz with water to make sure that the pastel's gone, or the white charcoal, whatever you happen to be using, is gone, and then we can start exploring further designs and I can show you how to neaten up your edges. So have fun doing that bit. My tree is dry now and I'm just holding it up so that you can see the charcoal, the white charcoal that I use for my outline. And what I'm going to do now is use a nappy wipe just to gently take away the charcoal without putting too much water onto the paper, because I'm not using a watercolor paper. It's just a normal, very thin sheet of black paper, and it will buckle up if I put too much water on it. So can you see most of it is gone now? It's a little bit still up here. And some of that's actually under the paint. It's turned quite cold here in Toowoomba, and so I've got a cup of coffee just out of reach. And you may hear a heater going on the floor. Well, you may hear a heater going, which I have on the floor. So I put a little bit of Glad wrap over my gold, because this has actually been left for about 12 hours. There were other things, you know, that life brings up. So it's been a while since I got back to painting. Alright, I'm thinking I might go to that round brush again. So what I'm trying to do here is just thicken up some of the areas of gold, just to make them opaque. They're quite transparent, and part of that is because I'd put the glazing medium in, or what I used was the airbrush medium. So I'll just go over a few areas like that. And you know, you can speed up this drying time between layers if you want to do more than one very easily with a hairdryer or with a heater. It's on the floor. Alright, so we've got rid of most of the white outlining, or the guiding lines that we put in, and we've got a nice coverage on most of the branches on our tree of life. And remember, I said not to stress if your lines aren't all perfect, or they don't come into as fine a point as what you'd like, because we're going to be able to fix that up very easily. I'm kind of happy with that. So what I need to do now is make sure that my work is completely dry. Okay, now we want to do some tidy up, just to make sure that, you know, our little swirls are finishing in a really nice point. So I'm actually using a Posca marker just to go around the edges, and I can just manipulate or cover any of the little bits that I felt you know, didn't lend itself to being such a nice fine point, or where I felt like maybe the tree branch was a little bit too thick. And can you see, if I zoom right in, I'll show you. See here, right here, there's a little bit of gold outside the black, so I can just fill that in. And when you first put the black marker on, it's really shiny, but it does in fact disappear. Like after a while you can't see that it's there at all. And so in this way, if we go around all of our branches, we can, you know, tidy them up and get them looking nice and crisp and in the thickness that we're after. So I might think that this one here, the gold is going too close to the outer edge of the swirl. So I can actually colour it in. And it's the same here. I might feel like that one's just a little bit thick and I want to thin it down a little, so I can do that. So I'll zoom back out, and this bit will be fast forward, but I'm just going to go around every one of the branches, fixing up any little bits that seem to be bothering me. And that's why I said in the beginning, don't stress if it's not quite the way you want it to be, because there's room for repairing or changing, tidying up. The other thing that it's really, really important is that you don't put a marker onto the wet paint. If the paint is wet, you're going to ruin your marker straight away. And so that's why I paused for a little bit, and I went and dried off the other layer of paint with the hairdryer, making sure that none of this is wet, because there's nothing worse than rushing ahead and then ruining a $5 pen because you were impatient. And there is a reason why I know that. Alright, so I've traced around, and you can see that it's hard to see. Now I'm just noticing in the camera, where is it? There's a little bit of gold peeking out here, so I'll just touch that up. And you know, you might find a few more places along the way that you want to touch up too. Now this is a really cheap permanent marker, metallic gold, that I got from Aldi, so it might need charging. And you notice that I was charging my black one also. Sometimes you just need to get the paint inside to flow, and I can touch up little bits with this too, or if I see little parts that I'm still thinking, oh, that needs a little bit more colour, I can go back to my paint on my palette. So there's a couple of spots now that I've put the black where I think, oh, you know, a little bit more gold would be nice. And of course, if I go over the lines, I can just draw them back in. That's not a problem at all. So there was just one or two little spots where I still felt like some of the initial charcoal was showing through. I did that layer quite heavy because I wanted to make sure that you could see it on the camera. If I was doing it by myself, I'm probably, or if I did anything, it would be very, very light, or with a lead pencil, so that it wouldn't show up. So I just want to demonstrate here. I'm going outside of my black line, and I can just touch that up. Now, the fun of Klimt was his use of gold, but also his use of patterning, and you can see it in here, his repeated pattern of triangles and circles, squares and swirls. So referring back to this book, you can see very, very clearly, you know, just using line. And here is an example, or a close-up of his tree of life, and again, hopefully you can see it, just the repeated pattern of circles and squares and triangles. So that's what we're going to play with now, and we're going to do that not with paint but with Sharpies or any kind of metallic pens that you might have. So in my cheap Aldi range, both of these are called gold, and yet you can see that there's one is a real deep gold and one is a slightly yellower gold or greener gold. Then I have a Pilot pen, I think it is, a hybrid gel pen in a gold, metallic gold. And then Sharpies. Now these just came from the local supermarket and they had a special on them, $5 for the set of 3. And we're going to use those to continue making our patterns, and I'm going to concentrate a little bit more on actually working with a few more finer swirls, and then I'm going to use the triangles and squares. So again, I'll fast forward this, and I hope you really enjoy the process and you're inspired to do some for yourself. So enjoy. So here is my completed piece, and I'm hoping that you can pick up some of the details. It's always interesting looking at things through the camera lens, because to my naked eye the black outlining isn't as obvious as it is in the camera, and yet the metallics that I can see quite clearly are not showing up as well. But it's a lot of fun, it's easy to do, limited supplies. You just need some metallic markers. You don't even need metallic paint, you can in fact do it all with markers. And it's a matter of exploring a repeated pattern or a repeated shape, making a pattern, and adding lots of swirls. So I hope you give it a go and enjoy creating your own tree of life, inspired by Gustav Klimt. And a thank you again to Miriam and Anya for a beautiful book that is also used for inspiration. Alright, I hope you have lots of fun. Bye.